Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Right Call podcast. Elliot, how was your weekend?
It was good, man. Just chilling, I guess. I'm not going to repeat the same thing that I told you earlier, but just relax. What about you?
It's good. Played some golf, trained.
Do some golf.
The weather was kind of cold. I played golf on Friday, actually.
Okay.
I took like an extended long weekend.
A 9 or an 18 hole?
18.
That's it.
We had a day. Lots of gambling, lots of laughs.
You gambled? You went
in golf.
Okay. You didn't go to the Cas?
No. Like we'll play, so like we'll compete against each other, but we'll compete for money just to make it more interesting. Because see, I think going to the casino is absolutely stupid.
It is, but I mean, sometimes it's fun.
It's definitely fun, but it's like the more you go, the more money you're going to lose.
The only time I gamble is in Europe for two reasons. First of all, the roulette table is a single zero. In North America, it's all double or even triple zeros. Stupid. And number two, euros don't count. It doesn't count.
It's funny money.
It's funny money.
It's funny money.
So there you go.
But yeah, guys, just to start off the podcast, if you guys like this, we put a lot of time and effort into everything. So if you do like this, we would really appreciate a subscription or at least just a thumbs up.
Like, share, subscribe, and go on Patreon. And you know what? We just released it.
Yeah.
Super cheap, $8 a month, I think. And you're gonna get some funky stuff out of
$7.99.
$7.99. There you go. Just like gasoline, I see it's like $1.49. I'm like, yes, it's under $1.50.
Yeah.
No, it's 149.9.
Yeah,
it's like it's
exactly. But yeah, all right. So let's get into it today. So media cycle, news cycle, a little bit on the slower side. Kind of entering into the dog days of summer. It's not summer yet, but we're getting there. Just had an election, and I think a lot of people, including myself, I don't know if you feel the same way. It's kind of like an election fatigue.
It's a hangover.
Yeah, it's like a hangover.
Or fucking hungover, man.
Yeah.
But there's only two ways to get over it. Get back on the
either
horse.
Either keep drinking or you just like quit for good, which you're gonna have to go through the pain and the withdrawal at the beginning.
I know, but you're not a quitter, are you? I'm not a quitter.
So a couple things that I want to touch on today. So housing, very, very interesting, coming from Gregor Robertson. So he's our new housing minister. He's actually the former mayor of Vancouver. He said some things. This is going around the news. He said, I'm not surprised at all about what he said about housing. Long story short, how house prices aren't going to drop. We'll get into that. And I got some data that I can pull up as well. Canadian debt, it's no secret. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty of the Canadian debt that's going on, but it's not pretty. Global oil consumption. So this is a point that we hammer all of the time here on the Right Call podcast. Global oil consumption. It's going up.
Oh, yeah.
It's not going to go down. We can't control other countries like China, like India, continents like Africa. We're not going to control them. We're not going to stop them from consuming more oil and consuming more hydrocarbons. So why do we keep shooting ourselves in the economic foot with this stupid carbon tax? And Canadians, and we'll get into more details later, but no, the carbon tax is not gone. They just moved it and shifted it from the consumer over to industry. They're going to pass these costs on now, and on top of that, you're not going to get any rebates. So that's we'll get into that a little bit later.
Jokes on us.
Yeah. Joe Biden, this is kind of interesting. Joe Biden, some news here. I know we don't usually cover American politics as much. So he had prostate cancer. Apparently, as early as 2021, I got a clip I'm going to get into later. This is coming from MSNBC. This is not coming from Fox.
Yeah.
MSNBC saying, a doctor saying, like, yeah, this guy had prostate cancer since 2021. And I want to draw some parallels between the Democrats and the Liberals because they're very ideologically speaking, they're very similar. So I would like to kind of play that game with you. I love playing games with you, Elliot. So we can go play that game, the Democrats and the Liberals. And what do you got on the docket here today, Elliot?
Yeah, well, we got to talk definitely about the tariffs again. I think this is going to be the last time we talk about the tariffs. But you know what? There's a interesting little plot twist to this entire ordeal. And I am so saddened to say that we've all got duped and played. What else is new?
Yeah.
And the Joe Biden thing is going to be interesting because you know what? Again, and I like the parallels and I know exactly where we're going to go with this. But honesty and transparency is definitely not the primary quality of certain parties.
Political parties. Yeah. It seems like it's optional.
It's more so, does it benefit you or not? You know? Yeah. If it does, we're going to be transparent and hammer it. And if it doesn't, then people are dumb and they should not know.
Yeah, exactly. So here, anything else you want to touch on, or do you want to get right into it right away?
Let's hit it.
Let's get into it. All right. New Housing Minister of Canada. Gregor Robertson, as I said, former mayor of Vancouver. That's definitely a great example to take a place if you want to be in charge of housing. The houses in Vancouver are super affordable. So
Amazing.
He was asked if he thinks housing prices need to come down. So we got caught it was in another setting, and he said, no, housing prices don't need to come down. And then he doubled down again on CBC, basically saying that housing prices don't need to come down.
I know. Why?
He says a big focus now is on affordable housing. It's no, it isn't. It's on purpose-built rentals. So every single time they're like, well, we're going to be putting in all these affordable housing, all these purpose-built rentals. That's for you to rent.
Mm-hmm.
So home ownership, to be honest, it already was dead. It's dead. I'm sorry. Like, you're never going to own a home unless you're rich or your parents give you the money for a down payment. Mm-hmm. That's kind of where we're at right now.
Or you inherit the house. But here's the issue.
Or that.
So many Canadians did not invest in retirement, in funds or their own private retirement, and put all their eggs in the metaphorical housing basket.
Yep.
So at this point, what they're going to have to do in retirement is sell the house. And that means that their offspring, their next of kin, their children will not have access to the family homes and will be completely locked out forevermore of the housing market.
So here, I'm going to jump to what Gregor Robertson said right now.
We've got to create some incentives and opportunities for people to get into the market. We got to make sure that people's assets are obviously protected, and that's the market housing.
So key word there, we got to make sure that people's assets are protected. Mm-hmm. In other words, so it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too. And he said something else when he's in the House of Commons, I think, and he was talking about saying, well, yeah, do housing prices need to go down? He said, no, housing prices don't need to go down, but what does need to happen is we need to create more supply. Well, if you created more supply, automatically the housing prices would actually go down.
So it's the usual political doublespeak. It's because they cannot take a position, and they have to appeal to both sides. And both sides are at odds with each other. One side wants to enter the housing market and as such needs prices to come down.
Yep.
The other side, which is, by the way, most Canadians and also most members of the House of Commons own property, own real estate, and they don't want the prices to go down. You cannot have both sides happening simultaneously. One or the other can exist, but sadly not both at the same time.
Yeah, and we're just going to take it through some policies that they've actually gone through to make sure that housing stayed propped up. So it's like, you know what I mean? They say one thing, but then when you actually look at the policies, there's one reason and one reason only that housing is this expensive in Canada. It's due to policy. If you think any other reason, that's not true, okay? These are government policies meant to keep housing prices propped up. So example number one. Policies that the Liberal government, and you know what, any government would be doing this in Canada as well. So the global pandemic, as you remember correctly, so they dropped rates to zero. And what did they do? They allowed for mortgage deferrals. So if you wanted to basically like, hey, you call up the bank, I can't make a payment for my house. I'm going to have to defer my payment. 18% of people who had a mortgage would defer the actual payment. So that's the first thing. If you went back to 2008 in the United States, if you couldn't afford your payment due to when the interest rates reset, too bad, so sad. You can't afford the payment. See you later. Get out.
Foreclosed.
Yep. Number two, interest rates went up in 2022. So what did they do when the interest rates went up in 2022? They did what's called a reverse amortization schedule. So typically speaking, when you're going to get a mortgage, it's going to be a 25 years. I think they just create it now for first-time home buyers up to 30 years.
Yes.
But it doesn't really make that big of a difference. But if you're going to get a mortgage, it's a 25-year amortization period. 25 years to pay off the actual mortgage. What did they do in 2022 when interest rates went up and people all of a sudden couldn't afford their mortgages? Well, they increased the amortization schedule. So we've seen cases of amortization schedules pushed out to over 100 years. So instead of having a 25-year mortgage, they would have a 45-year, a 55-year, a 70-year, an 80-year, a 90-year, a 100-year. Again, as opposed to saying to the homeowner, look, man, I'm sorry that you can't afford this house, but here's your new payment based on the interest rates. You're going to have to pay that. Guys, what would happen if they actually did that? The housing prices would drop significantly because people would default. And if people would default, a higher supply of houses would come to the market, which in turn would automatically drop the prices. And then just my last example, and this is the most recent one with regards to the pre-sales going on in Toronto and Vancouver. Montreal is not as hit as big, but the banks are doing what's called a blanket appraisal on pre-sale condos. So some banks are still financing underwater new construction projects. So instead of people just walking away with their haircut, or instead of people just saying to the developer, look, man, keep my down payment, I can't afford the mortgage. Because I know a lot of people that got into the pre-sale market. If you got into it in 2015 and got out in 2018, you made a shit ton of money. But if you bought in like 2018 and you're just getting out around now, and let's say, for example, you're not getting the price that you want to get, now they have to go get the mortgage. So now they're getting a mortgage for a property that is worth significantly less than when they actually purchased it, and they can't afford the mortgages. So the banks come up and say, no problem, we're going to give you blanket appraisal. So don't listen to what they tell you. Look at the policy that they actually conduct and implement. And lastly, guys, the banks don't want their portfolio to drop in value. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. People want affordable housing as long as it's not their house.
It was the NIMBY thing, right? It's not in my backyard. So
Yes.
it's like everyone wants high density housing to be exploited so that the housing crisis is resolved.
Just not my neighborhood.
Just not in my backyard.
Yeah.
You know? So I want to drive a few more points to that.
Yeah.
All right. First of all, compared to the US, and this is why policy in Canada is the number one reason why our prices are so high. It's not because we have this desirable real estate, environment. In real estate, it's true that, location. That's one thing, but policy can also affect things. The one thing I love to do is you go on any like MLS website and zoom into the Niagara region, right? Niagara, just so people know, you have a Canadian side and you have an American side. And it's divided by a body of water. On the Canadian side, you have housing prices in the $5, $6, $7, $8, $900,000. On
For
the other
sheds.
Yeah, for sheds, right? On the other side of the river, and mind you, it's pretty much one big city divided in two by a river. And on one side you have Canada, the other you have the US. On the American side, housing is 100,000, 150, 200,000, 250,000
Yeah.
for the exact same quality of housing.
Yeah.
That just goes to show the insane divide between Canada and the US, and for the same location,
Yes.
right? Effectively. That's number one. Another thing too about if Canadians were to default on loans. See, there is a caveat to be made, or a point to be brought up here. The difference between mortgages in Canada and in the US is that in Canada, if a significant portion of the population would default on their mortgage, like the Americans did in 2008 during the subprime crisis, is that in Canada, the impact can be devastatingly worse. And here's why. Unlike the US, Canada's mortgages are what's called recourse loans. So in the US, if you defaulted on your mortgage, keys, bank, walk away.
Ciao.
That's it. You lose your house.
Yeah.
That sucks. You lose the money you've sunk into it. That sucks. But that's as much as damage goes. In Canada, all mortgages, except for Alberta, gotta love Alberta, are recourse loans. So that means that if the cost of the house, if the proceeds of selling the house under power of sale by the bank or foreclosure by the bank is not enough to recuperate how much you owe to the bank, so if you're underwater, then they can come for all other assets. They can sue you for everything else that you have in order to repay the loan, the recourse loans. This is on top, by the way, of the fact that a lot of...
I didn't know this. So in the US, you can't do that?
In the US, most loans, the vast majority of mortgages are not recourse loans. In Alberta, they're allowed to have non-recourse loans, so it's something to negotiate with your mortgage broker, I guess, or the bank.
Yeah.
But in Quebec and the other 9 provinces and territories, they're all recourse loans. So yeah, for example, if I default on my mortgage,
So they'll come after your personal assets.
they'll come for your personal assets. Now, it all depends on when you bought the property, right?
Yeah.
But the issue is this, and this leads me to the third point, because honestly, and this is why it's hard on Canadians to default on their property, because it can impact their finances way more than just the housing part of it. They could go bankrupt effectively, right? Declare bankruptcy, that's never good. But in Canada right now, and this is actually kind of scary in a way, the average home price in Canada dropped again, and right now sits at still crazy $702,000.
So it's like gone down a little bit. Yeah.
But it's gone down. So we're down to $702,000, which is roughly the same price as it was in 2021.
Yeah.
Which means that if you've purchased your home in 2021, you've had 4 years of zero growth whatsoever. And actually, it's been an expense, right? A lot of people invest in real estate thinking, I'm going to build equity. Heck, some landlords purchase properties to rent out with negative cash flow in the hopes of building equity and making money at the sale.
It's a speculative asset at that point, because if something doesn't actually cash flow, then you're speculating that the asset itself is going to be worth more money in the future.
Absolutely.
It's not a business. It's not a good business model, if you ask me.
Exactly. So any single family detached home that was purchased, let's say in the last 4 years, you're underwater right now.
Yeah.
You're underwater.
And also
that's
too,
scary.
if you're, just to add insult to injury, if you're one of those people that had to actually do the reverse amortization, so let's say you start off in 2021, you bought at the peak of the market, and you bought for a 5-year mortgage, 25-year amortization, interest rates reset and whatever in 2022. If you had to let's say reverse amortize that to 50 years, just as an example, you're not even covering all of the interest expense either.
Yep.
So,
well, I have a story about a buddy of mine.
but I just want to say this:
Yeah.
it's like we're essentially becoming. I mean, it's no surprise we're becoming a nation of renters, and even and again, the people who are getting into the housing market at the peak. You don't really own your home if you have a 6-year amortization period. You're going to be done paying off your mortgage when you're, what, 85?
But that's like that in Europe, though.
Yeah.
They're generational mortgages.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
Yeah.
It's real.
But that's where this is going.
Yeah. You purchase a home today knowing that your like grandkids one day are going to pay it off.
It's crazy.
But wait, people are not having kids anymore.
yeah. Like that's just it. But again, it's like, I'm a free market guy. I know you're a free market guy too.
Big time.
And if for all the millennials out there or anyone else who's trying to get into the housing market right now, it's a very simple solution if they want the housing market to correct itself.
Mm-hmm.
When interest rates go up, people pay the new cost of the mortgage.
Yep.
And you increase supply. And if it's going to break, you let it break. But the politicians and policymakers, they're throwing everything in the kitchen plus the kitchen sink at housing to make sure that it stays propped up. And this is where I kind of come into, I don't want to say conspiratorial, but where if I'm a bank executive, a big part of my book is mortgages.
Huge.
I don't want that to drop by 20%. That's going to be horrible for the shareholders.
Big time.
And all we care about are the shareholders, right? All these guys, all the boomers that are already making all this money.
Yeah.
But again, the point I'm trying to make is millennials, any single time, if you're actually trying to get into the housing market, you're never going to get into the housing market.
It's over.
Yeah.
It's pretty much
like
over.
I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Like you're just not. They keep doing the policy. It's so obvious with the policies that they're putting forward to keep housing propped up.
Absolutely.
If they would just let it drop or break, you would have an opportunity to get in.
Any asset goes through cycles. This is not it's not supposed to be this kind
Always
of like
up.
boogeyman. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, it can't always be up. There's booms and busts.
Stunks go up.
Yeah.
No, it's normal booms and busts. It's a normal healthy asset cycle, right?
Some people lose their shirt, but that's part of
And
capitalism.
that's fine. Now, the U.S. went through that in 2008. They had a
Yes.
massive bust. That was part of the system. Canada, we propped ourselves up and
Yes.
kicked the can down the road. And today, the pain's going to be real bad when it happens. And speaking of which, by the way, the average mortgage renewal rate this year, we'll see over 8% growth in payment costs, which means that households on average are going to see an increase in just their mortgage payments by 8%. Now, this is on top of record high consumer debt, car payments, taxes, and a stagnating economy. So that increase of 8% of housing costs might just be what's the drop that makes the entire thing overflow.
I don't think I'm going to disagree with you there, just because they're going to do stuff like this. They're just going to increase the amortization schedule. And for example, like if you call up from the research that I've done, if you call up the bank and let's say you're like, dude, like I can't, my mortgage payment right now is $3,000 a month.
Yeah.
The new interest rate, I got to pay $4,000 a month. I'm telling you right now, I can't afford that.
Yeah.
The banks will play ball with you.
They will, but okay. So the story about a buddy of mine, he bought a townhouse in Lachine for like, I don't know, $550,000, right in the middle of like, the insane kind of like everyone's looking to buy.
Everyone's bidding. Yeah.
Everyone's bidding, right? And he obviously, at the request or the recommendation of his mortgage broker, got a variable rate because that's the best thing you can get.
Yeah.
Then the rates started increasing, and his mortgage payment went from, and don't quote me exactly on the numbers, but roughly, went from something like $1,500, right? And since it's a fixed variable rate, which sounds a little bit weird, but it's a predetermined payment, right?
Yeah.
What it did at first is that the portion of capital repayment or principal repayment shrunk up until the $1,500 a month covered strictly interest. So that's the reverse amortization you're talking about. Instead of 25 years, it's increasing, 26, 27, 28. Okay. Then you reach the trigger point. The trigger point is at which point your $1,500 a month does not even cover interest anymore.
Yeah.
So he got triggered.
Yeah.
So at this point, the bank says, now your payment is $2,000 a month. You're still not really paying much principal, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, you're still like reversed amortized at that point.
Yeah.
It's happened 3 times to him, at which point he was paying close to $3,000 a month, which is twice as much as he was paying. So if you've budgeted a certain amount, you're way over.
But you're paying rent. It's rent.
And on top of that, he's not paying back the principal. So he's strictly paying interest, effectively, as you said.
And he's not even covering all the interest?
No, at that point, at $3,000, he was covering interest,
Okay.
right? But the payment...
No, but was he covering all of the interest?
All the interest,
He was
yeah.
covering, okay.
But zero principal, which means that his amortization period now was
just
at like
gonna-
32 years.
Yeah.
And every month he's paying twice the amount that he was initially expecting. And yeah, like you said, he's renting from the bank at that point.
Yeah.
Which is insane.
Yeah. So it's like, but this this is what it is now.
Yeah, I know.
This is what it is. So unless you already own your home, unless you're super rich, or unless your parents gave you money for a down payment, and we've talked about this before, one of my buddies is a real estate broker, and I ask him questions. I go, how are people affording these houses? How is a 32-year-old who makes $150,000 a year affording this $1 million home in the West Island? He's like, their parents.
Yeah.
And I'm not cheating on it, but it's just like parents coming in. They there's something about, it's like the American dream. There's something about, it's not a good financial decision, but there's something about owning your own principal residence that gives you stability if you want to have a family.
Yeah.
Like I rent right now, and I would like to buy the property. And not because I think it's a good financial decision, but strictly just for the quality of life. It's your house. You can do stuff on. There's something psychological about it. I can't put my finger on it. But it's like, you want to build a family here. It's your house. You can work on it.
So true. Let me tell you, from man to man, all right? When I purchased my first property, and I remember taking ownership of it, and I walked on a plot of land, my 2 feet on the ground. I'm like,
it's your house.
This plot of land is my fucking land.
Yeah.
It's a weird feeling, but it's like, hey, this is my land, motherfucker. Still got to pay municipal taxes, but that's a different story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I always say, it's like, I'm going to run for mayor of Kirkland one day. And my only thing on my political platform is going to be, I'm going to drop your property taxes.
Elected tomorrow.
That's all I'm going to say. Curtis, what are you going to bring to the table? I'm going to drop your property taxes.
It would not even be that hard, to be honest.
It wouldn't.
The mismanagement is insane.
I went to the budget, the line items for the city of Kirkland, and there was this massive line item for environmental charges. It was the biggest line item by far, $8 million a year, something like that. Yeah. Environmental charges. I have no idea what it is because they don't give you the details of what it actually is. But I'm looking at that. I'm going like, I could absolutely probably cut this by like 75%. Probably cut it to zero.
Could be.
Well, it's like the same thing. It's like the compost. They have compost every Tuesday, and they pick up the garbage and the recycling every Friday. The compost, I would bet, I want to actually do this. I want to put a little GPS tracker in it. I want to see where it goes. I bet you anything. I bet you anything. The compost goes to the garbage landfill.
Straight.
I will bet. Dump. I will put. We should go on Polymarket and make a bet about this. I am telling you, man. The compost in Canada or in Montreal. Maybe I'm wrong. But I'm going to do this test. This would be great Patreon content. We're going to do this for Patreon.
We'll do it.
We're going to put a GPS tracker. Okay, Shem, I'm not even fucking kidding. We're going to do this. We could do investigative journalism. I want to see where
we're coming for you, CBC.
Yeah, I want to see where that compost goes.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But other things too, like, okay, take the city of Beaconsfield, where I live, right? They are the first city in Canada, I think in North America, with intelligent garbages. So you had to decide,
what does that even mean?
Okay, so you had to decide, first of all, which size garbage you want. Do you want like a fucking 5 liter, a fucking 14 liter, a 36 liter, whatever garbage? Then you get charged depending on how often your garbage gets picked up and the size of it. There's a tracker, there's like a chip in the garbage. So when the truck comes, picks up the garbage, it registers this address, this garbage, this number, one service this month, right? Because they come every week. And so people now are trying to skip. They're like, oh, we're gonna try to only put up the garbage, the disposal once every 2 weeks, or they're gonna downsize. Instead of the big normal, what I consider normal garbage can, they go for the smaller ones because it's cheaper. Now taxes didn't go down. It's actually the opposite. It's just you keep it as the same. But if you want,
and let me guess, this is all in the name to save the environment.
Yeah, but here's the interesting thing: the mayor's son somehow is somewhat related to somehow the company that somehow brought forth the project. I don't know. Wonder why. Just saying.
Okay, let's move on before I get upset. Drop an F-bomb.
Do it. It works.
Yeah. All right.
Let's use that as a hook.
So back on the environment, we're gonna keep pounding this away. Oil global consumption, and my boy, well, he's not my boy. I don't know him personally, but Richard Diaz, awesome guy from the Looney Hour. I always plug him. I listen to him religiously every single week, and he has awesome data. So the tweet: when Canadian politicians tell you that global crude oil consumption is going to peak, they are lying or they are stupid. East Asia is driving new growth. India is joining the party, and Africa is only just waking up. This will more than offset Europe, still committed to industrial harakiri, whatever that is. I think it's like hokey pokey type of shit. And Japan, whose population is shrinking. Let's take a look at the graph. So U.S. Oil consumption, it's actually a little bit less than what it was back in 2005. And then if we look at Asia and Oceania, that's so example China and Japan. China going up, in Europe or whatever, India going up, Africa going up. If we just take a look here, so we always come back to the same thing, And I want to hammer down this point because I know it's a very simple opinion. Guys, global oil consumption, whether you like it or not, whether you disagree with it or not, is going up. We're not going to sanction China. We're not going to sanction India. We're not going to sanction Africa. And think about all these people that are being lifted out of poverty. What happens when you're lifted out of poverty? You are going to consume more energy. Your footprint, what's it called, your ecological footprint or whatever, is going to grow.
Oh, I thought instead you just purchased properties in Canada, but whatever.
But it's a simple point. So if global oil consumption is going to continue to increase, and it's going to increase at an increasing rate due to AI.
Oh, for sure.
So if CO2 emissions are going to increase in the world, why do we have a damn carbon tax here in Canada? And yes, we still have a carbon tax. We just don't have a consumer carbon tax. We have an industrial carbon tax, which is hidden, and you don't get those rebates anymore, where they said that 8 out of 10 Canadians get more money in your pockets than at the beginning, which was also a complete lie.
Gonna have to sell my house now. Can't afford it anymore.
Yeah, so it's just like, and every single week, the thing I love about Rich Diaz is he basically just goes, I don't understand places like Europe, places like Canada. US isn't doing this anymore. Trump came in and said, drill, baby, drill. We need to get the cost of energy as low as possible if we are to compete in this AI race. That's it. That's all, point final.
And withdrew from the Paris Accord agreement.
Yes. And so it's like, you know what I mean? Do you have any comments you would like to add to this, Elliot?
Just that we're fucking stupid and sorry. No, it's just, there's just not much to say. It's self-explanatory.
What do you say to people whenever, because like in the comments section, sometimes I'll see this. What do you say to someone that goes, that agrees with the carbon tax, and they say, well, what are we supposed to do? What do you say to them?
Well, the question you have to ask, look, when you argue with someone, I always like to use the Socratic method. Okay, let them come to the conclusion. Okay, what are we supposed to do? Okay, what are we trying to achieve? Well, I cut down carbon. Why? Because the planet. Okay, are we producers of it? Well, not really. So does lowering our emission going to stop whatever you're trying to do? Well, no. So
every bit counts, Elliot.
But it doesn't. I mean, mathematically, it doesn't. It just fucking doesn't.
Every bit counts, though, Elliot. We all have to make the effort, and we have to lead by example. I'm playing devil's advocate. We have to lead by example, and if we have this carbon tax and we drop our carbon footprint in the world, China's going to follow.
All right. So then I asked that person, what steps are you taking?
I bike as much as possible.
But do you have a car? Do you have consumer goods?
I have a Tesla.
Okay. So why don't you walk?
Well, I can't walk to work.
Find a way. Move closer.
Well, that would be expensive. I can't afford that.
Oh, shit. So is the tax. So is the tax, motherfucker. No, but for real, I mean, ultimately, you got to play that game with them because they'll come to their own conclusion. It's like the people that say, like, I'm all for illegal immigration. Okay, cool. So are you open to having some people come over and stay with you? Well, no. Like, it's my house. Like, all right, but same parallel. It's your country. Why would you just let people? It's always, look, people are willing to virtue signal as long as it doesn't affect them. And that was one of the first thing you've ever said on the first podcast you and I have ever recorded together. And you're like, going green works as long as you can afford it. As soon as you can't afford it, people, like, money comes first.
Yes.
And
that's why I forget the name of the environmentalist, but his argument is, if we get energy as cheap as possible, that would actually, because people are now going to be allowed to, they're going to be able to afford the actual energy to go and do stuff. I mean, if you look at a middle class in Canada or the United States versus a middle class in China, the middle class as a percentage right now in China or in India, it's a lot smaller than what it is here.
Yeah.
So they're not worried about saving the environment. They're worried about what they're going to eat that night, or they're worried about their kids. They're worried about safety. They're worried about things that we're not worried about. It's a luxury belief for us to think that everyone needs to go green. So his argument is, if we can get energy as cheap as possible so that everybody can use it and they can actually move up to the middle class, then they can start to think about other things outside of survival. And once they can start to think of other things outside of survival, then maybe they can say, maybe we shouldn't be burning all this coal. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this. But at this point in time, if everybody's poor and you're just making it day by day, I mean, you're not going to be worried about driving a Tesla. You're not going to be worried about a carbon tax. You're just worried about feeding your kids. So
Speaking of Teslas, though, okay, and this is another thing that came out this week. The sales of EVs have dropped 45% year over year. Nobody wants
This is
EVs.
international or this is Canada?
No,
or
Canada.
This is in Canada.
In Canada, the sales of EV in Canada have dropped year over year 45%. Nobody wants a fucking EV. They try it because they think it's cool.
Yeah.
They fall for the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
They take it one winter. The advertised distance, let's say range, is 500 kilometers. In the middle of the winter, it drops to like 250. And it's not.
And don't give us that shit that this is in protest of Elon Musk. That's not true either.
No, because it's all EVs. It's not
Yes.
just Teslas, by the
Yes.
way. It's all EVs. All right. Nobody wants EVs in Canada. They don't work here. Our winters are too cold. Our distances are too great. All right. And the infrastructure is just lacking overall. EVs. I'm sorry. I hate them. I will be the last motherfucker driving a gas car. And by the way, Carney and his liberal little posse they want to outlaw the sale of gas powered or fossil fuel powered vehicles by 2030 or something, 2035, one of the two. Yeah, over my dead body, man. I'm gonna buy a muscle car V8 5-liter Stang away. You know what? I'll be the last guy. I'll be blasting some
I just asked ChatGPT. I'm actually
Yay.
curious. What's the overall percentage of cars emit in CO2 in Canada? Okay, so look. So just in Canada, greenhouse gases coming from cars or from transportation accounted for 22% of the country's total greenhouse gases emissions. This is back in 2022. So 22%. So again, let's just run the math. So for us, if we were to actually completely change all of the transport, so from 22%, let's just say hypothetically speaking that we drop it to zero, which is probably not possible. But even if we drop it to zero, so 22% of 1.5% of the world's entire CO2 emissions is what's 0.22 times 0.15? I don't know what it is, but it's very, very, very small. So even if every single Canadian switched to electric vehicles, it would barely put a dent into the international CO2 emissions. And on top of that, don't forget, you have to charge the cars. Where are we going to get the energy there? In Quebec, yes, we're going to have hydroelectric power, which is great. But what about in places like Alberta? What about in places out in the east? Like, what is actually, where are you going to get the energy to charge the batteries?
Yep.
I'll bet you anything, it's not going to be 100% green.
Oh, not only that, just the building of the cars themselves.
Yes.
You know, the extraction, forget building the cars. The extraction of the minerals, the rare earth metals needed to build those batteries, just the extraction of it nearly offsets the benefits. And that's just one segment of the entire process. Then you have to manufacture, ship it, and then obviously charge it. And depending on where you are in the world, that could have greater impact than other places. Quebec, not so bad, hydroelectric. But other provinces, not necessarily.
But even hydroelectric power, and like everyone thinks that it's just 100% green. I mean, you have to displace a lot of trees. There was an event. This happened not too long ago in China where something broke with the dam for hydroelectric power. It killed 100,000 people.
That's
you never hear a peep about it.
Never. But the thing too is that so China has this thing called the Three Gorge Dam. All right, I did not prepare anything on that, but it is probably the world's biggest crisis waiting to happen. This dam, if it was to fail, which shows signs of failure because the main structure is actually slowly starting to move and collapse, when it does, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when at this point, there's no way to fix it, the human loss, the catastrophe that will ensue will be in the tens of millions of people who will die downstream from the floods of this dam. It will happen. And by the way, side note, that's one of the reasons why China doesn't want to mess with the US, because that's one tiny little precision missile strike away. For real. All right, that was it.
Yes, it's like, I mean, we're not saying don't invest into hydroelectric power, but it's just, I guess the bigger part of it is always this, and what we always harp on and what I get so frustrated with, it's like, it's so obvious just, they're trying to make this climate crisis a metric for control over us. And people think like, well, no, Curtis, you're being a little bit conspiratorial again. I'm telling you right now, this is just a metric of control because they can actually, like, they're like, only I can basically tell you the policies and you just need to listen to me. So that's what I always get frustrated about.
It is annoying, right?
Yeah, it's super annoying.
There's also an interesting, and I'm like jumping from one thing to the other, but this just popped up, and I think this is going to be interesting because we're kind of talking about the economy here. Yeah. And there's a job reports that came out from StatsCan. Yeah. All right. So do you think it's a good one? Do you think it's positive?
If it's a recent one, no, I definitely don't think it's positive.
Well, this is going to hurt a tiny little bit. I mean, okay, so this is about job growth per sector. divided between the government bureaucrats and the jobs outside of government, so the private sector. So Canada did see a slight increase since the beginning of the pandemic in private sector jobs, 6.4%. This is since, by the way, the beginning of the pandemic. This is not year over year. This is not month over month. This is like nearly half a decade ago. We've had 6.4% private sector job growth. Now, contrast that to a government...
Since when? Since when?
Since the start of the pandemic.
Okay.
All right, so 4 years ago, let's say. All right, so 4 years, private sector, 6.4% job growth. Contrast that to public sector jobs, government bureaucrats.
Let me guess. 42.
Oh man, that would be insane. You're halfway there. The government bureaucrats have increased by 20.6%.
As a share of GDP?
No, just total number of jobs.
Okay, just total number of jobs, just like headcount. Okay.
Yeah. So that's since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, if we look month over month, so since last month, there has been a loss. So this is today. This is freaking May 2025. There has been 26,800 job loss in the private sector. However, fear not, because there has been 22,900 job gains in the government sector. We're a nation of fucking government bureaucrats.
This is also, it's happening everywhere. And also too, just to hide, you can paper over the GDP numbers. So to make GDP numbers look good, a lot of times governments, what they're going to do is they're going to hire public sector workers. I mean, the US is doing the same thing. Europe is doing the same thing. And they kind of, the US, it's not as bad as it is here in Canada.
Well, with Doge, they're cutting at this point, no?
You're right. But up until Trump came in, I don't know what's happening since Punch. But up until then, I mean, the GDP was growing at like an annual rate of whatever it was. And if you actually looked at the split of private sector job creation versus public sector job creation, the public sector was a lot higher as well. I'm not saying I agree with it, but like...
But that was under Biden.
Yes.
That was under Biden.
And like a lot of times these people are basically, well, they're doing that just to make the GDP numbers look a lot better. And yeah, so it's like, anyways.
Well, I mean, speaking of Biden, I think this is a good way to lead into.
Yeah, so I got a clip here.
Huge revelation.
So this is, and we're gonna draw parallels between the Liberals and the Democrats. So Joe Biden, they've been covering up the fact that he has prostate cancer for years.
Yep.
He was diagnosed when he was president. I can't believe that they actually still let him run. First of all, I also can't believe the fact that they let him remain in as president. Maybe it has to do with the fact that they knew Kamala Harris couldn't do the job, or it could also do with the fact that the people who were controlling from the back didn't want him to step down because they might have been the ones to lose control.
Exactly. See, I've been, and by the way, this is really interesting because you did recommend me one podcast once. It was a Democrat not staffer, but a high-ranking Democrat. That lady, that little Chinese lady. I don't know if you remember. In the middle of winter.
Yeah. She used to work for the party.
Yes, exactly. And she was being interviewed
the skinny girl.
Yeah. And she was being interviewed by a pretty good guy. Honestly, I liked that podcast. Was great. And she was revealing pretty much all the dirty secrets. And the question was, okay, who was really running the White House during Biden's term? Like, let's be honest. It wasn't Biden. We all know that.
No.
He was sleeping at the wheel. Who was it? She's like, look, it's not that easy to pinpoint, but the reality is that a lot of the lower level staffers kind of took it upon themselves to, step up and run the place as if it was one big giant party. And that's one of the reasons why there was a massive push for LGBTQ issues. It's because a lot of staffers were part of that community. And they turned the White House into one big fat gay party. And before you think that I'm making this up, legitimately, some of them got caught.
They were all having sex with each other.
Yeah, they got caught in the freaking Senate room, like boning each other. All right,
they were having like an orgy.
Exactly. So like, this is not conspiracy. Okay, this is true. Yeah. And so I think that's one of the reasons.
Sounds awesome. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Go ahead. Continue.
Is this your big coming out? You keep saying you have a girlfriend, but I've never seen her. She was here last week apparently. No, but jokes aside, it's I think there was a lot of power brokers behind Biden that could stand to lose a lot of their influence, and also a lot of the influence that they had with donors and with other people. I mean, if you have access to the president, you have access to some policies, it gives you power, and people like power. So I think they just hid. They all colluded and hid the fact, because there's a doctor that came out, maybe this is the guy, but he said that like, there's no way this thing is coming out today in May and I was not diagnosed before. The fact that it is metastatic right now, right? And was not diagnosed prior, one of the easier cancer to diagnose, may I add.
And they're running health checks on the president all the time.
He's got the best medical staff in the world.
They would pick this up in 2 seconds.
Of course.
Yeah.
Because this
hey, doc, by the way, I'm peeing 15 times a night. Okay, let's do some tests.
It's worse than that. It comes up in a random blood test. Like I'm going for a blood test, I think Thursday or whatever. They test for something called prostate specific antigen, PSA. It's like one of the most common thing they test for men over the age of like 30, right? It would have came out like alarmingly high the very moment that it was not even yet cancerous, but just slightly like,
hey, we might have a problem.
We might have a problem.
Here, let's check out the clip. I'm kind of curious what this doctor said.
An oncologist, obviously incredibly respected. You believe that it is likely, just for those just tuning in, you believe it is likely if this prostate cancer has spread to the bone that he could have had it for up to a decade, but certainly it's likely. Would it be fair to say it's likely to have had this for at least several years?
Oh, more than several years. You don't get prostate cancer.
So I just want to stop you. So this is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
I mean, there you have it.
But he's admitted to it. There's a clip that just resurfaced recently of him in front of a crowd talking about God knows what, typical Biden stuff. And at one point he mentions, this is why we all have a higher rate of cancer. This is why I have cancer. It's because of, and he's talking about like pollution back in the days, like and whatnot. I think he was talking about some EPA stuff, like environmental protection stuff. And he admits flat out, like, this is why I have cancer. Obviously, his staffers right after came out saying it was a gaffe. It was a typical Biden gaffe. He did not mean I have cancer. He means this is why there's a higher rate of cancers. But Biden, he just couldn't control himself at that point. He's going dementic or dementia. So yeah, he admitted in front of everyone. So the U.S. government lied to its people. Now, it wouldn't be the first time, but I mean, this is no benign thing. This is the leader of the free world, whom you hid a cancer diagnostic, perhaps since the very beginning, and then it makes you question the credibility of every single word, action, and decision ever taken by the White House.
What do you think the parallels are, or are there any parallels between the Democratic government, the Democrats, and the Liberals here?
Well, I mean, the parallels are indeed uncanny because look, let's use that as a great example. This week it came out, a bombshell report actually. Someone uncovered the fact that we all got played. It's a bombshell revelation actually. Carney issued an order during the election, undisclosed to the entire public, that nullified most counter tariffs on the US. This was hidden from Canadians until after Canada's election and was released only, couple days ago? So to keep in mind that Carney campaigned the entire time on a $20 billion package that would be collected and used to support people who lost their job because of the counter tariffs. And it was all about, we need to fight. The entire thing was, I have a plan to beat Trump, and a plan beats not having a plan. The conservatives want to work with Trump. Me, I'm going to stand up to Trump. And all the boomers with their fucking elbows up lunacy, they were like, yeah, we got to fight Trump and whatever. All along, it was just a big, fat lie. We got duped. I got lied, you got lied. We all got lied to by our prime minister. That's how much contempt he has for the people. This is how low he regards all of us. He's willing to lie point blank to our faces, and all of his cabinets and all of his freaking supporters agreeing and buying it. So you know what? If the Democrats can lie about a cancer diagnostic and the Liberals can lie about the core issue of the entire campaign, God knows what the fuck we're being lied to about. Trust is at zero right now when it comes to that party and that entire political ideology. Zero.
And this is where, conservatives, all politicians lie, right? I just feel like left-leaning politicians, like if you get the Liberals or you get the Democrats, I just feel like they'll say whatever it is that they need to say to actually get elected, more so than like a conservative or a Republican. Again, I want to make it clear, I think they're both full of shit. But there's what's the word? they're like more conniving. They're more like manipulative. You know what I mean? Like I feel like a conservative will just lie to your face, and so it's like such a straightforward lie. You know they're lying, versus a left-leaning politician. They'll play with your heartstrings. They'll play with your logic. They'll manipulate you a lot more.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble articulating like it is. Do you know what I mean, though?
I know what you mean, and I'll use an analogy. Actually, this is very interesting, right? I think it comes from a elitist mentality. Look, listen, it's going to sound fucked up, but you got to look at human psychology. When you see yourself as better than someone else, you see them as lacking just basic decency and respect. You just don't respect them. You don't care about them. So you'll treat
They don't
them
know
like,
any better.
They don't know any better, right? So I read this article actually. It was an individual that was interviewing a very wealthy liberal donor, and businessman, incredibly successful. And he said, "Okay, well, you're incredibly successful, right? You're a capitalist at heart. Why aren't you conservative? Why do you donate so much to the liberal cause? Why do you support them so much?" Here was his answer. He said, "Here's the reality. When you're wealthy, when you're rich, when you're powerful, you hate democracy, because democracy means that my vote,
It's less control.
my vote is the exact same as this teacher down the road or this blue collar worker, next door. I don't want to be equal to them. I want influence. I want power. So I will support the party that allows me to buy power." They have contempt for the regular person.
And I feel like it's kind of just getting worse. Like just another example going on right now, just back to policy. So, I mean, the federal government, I don't know when the last time they actually did this. They just straight up said, yeah, there's no budget this year.
Oh my God.
And they're not dropping a budget. Like, this is big news. They just said, hey, yeah, there's no budget. We're going to release a budget in the fall. It's like, excuse me, we would like to know not that it really means anything anyways, but just the precedent that it sets to not have a budget.
But push it further. We were sold on the fact that we had an economic Jesus that would come in with his triple degrees and his central bank experience who would rectify the economy. Well, step number one, and I know this because I've worked with motherfucking bankers. They always want to see numbers. They want to see fucking numbers all the time.
Of course.
Where are the numbers?
Yeah.
Why not? This is unprecedented. Look, maybe you can't drop a full-time budget. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Drafting a budget at this time of year might be hard, but at least...
It doesn't matter. Get it done. Get it done.
I agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. But at least an economic update. We won't even get an economic update all year. So we've just basically written a blank check. And might I add, his reasoning, again, shows the contempt for Canadians. Well, there's a summer vacation coming around the corner. So summer vacation is more important to the Liberal government right now than it is to update and keep Canadians aware of our dire financial situation.
But I think this is the part, it's like a bigger conversation. I think they're just hitting the point where they don't care because they know that the average voter doesn't understand a budget anyways.
True.
And if you look at the statistics that we were talking about last time, I think it's 5%. This is coming from the pollster. And he said roughly 5% of people vote with their head and actually understand policy. And then the rest vote with their heart or they vote with their gut, whatever that means. So just voting, I like him because he seems like a nice guy. I like his suit. He's handsome. So their logic might be gone to the point like, well, why do we need to do this? No one's going to understand the budget anyways. Who cares? Let's just do whatever we want. Like, it's inch by inch every single time. And we keep saying this is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. This is unprecedented. But also, too, if you look at it, we're both business guys. If you look at it from a point where there's no budget, does that, and Carney keeps saying he wants to attract foreign capital. Do you think that it's attractive for foreign capital for foreign businesses to want to invest in Canada when they're not even releasing a budget? Does that give confidence to foreign capital to come over to our country?
Risk and uncertainty is the biggest killer of economic investment in any sector, period. So all we're doing right now is saying there's going to be uncertainty.
Yes.
In Canada, don't come.
Yes, and the other point too, like we were talking about this last week, the new cabinet. You have Stephen Guilbeault, and I'm drawing a blank right now. So the person who's actually in charge of oil and gas at this point in time. So again, you keep saying you want to build these pipelines. Stephen Guilbeault's right-hand man or woman, is now in charge of oil and gas exploration. I forget the actual term here in Canada, but. So if you want to build these things and yet you appoint someone who essentially it's their mission to make sure that the oil and the hydrocarbons stay in the ground. So again, what signal are you sending to the market? Hey, come to Canada, we're open for business.
Yeah, I know.
And like I thought at the beginning that he was going to be campaigning and saying a lot of stuff just to get elected. And I'll tell you what, man, for the first couple of days that this guy is actually working, he's not giving me a lot of confidence. If he's not giving myself a lot of confidence to let the world know that Canada is open for business, do you actually, like, what has he done for us to signal to the world that Canada is open for business this time around?
Well, he's gone to Europe and said, "Hey guys, we're gonna fucking get some money." That's about it. He's really good at just saying he shook hands and he talked to like. Okay, I saw the Liberal Party release. Here's what Mark Carney did first week in office. He had a call with the president of so and so and the prime minister of XYZ. And like people were commenting saying, "Who fucking cares about a call? Cool. I had a call with my manager this morning. Does it mean anything got done? That means nothing. A call is just a call. What concrete result has come from this call? First of all, what was even discussed in the call? Why don't you release it?" That's one thing I give credit to Trump. Every fucking time he talks to a world leader, he comes out on Truth or X, whatever, and he just says, "I had this call. It was good. It was bad. This is what was discussed. This is what was promised." And he airs it publicly. And that probably is a good way to keep people accountable, may I add. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure. He stretched,
or
and I'm sure
twist it.
I'm sure he exaggerates a little bit too.
Oh, for sure. It was like when you met the guy from SoftBank there, Sung or whatever,
Masha Sung.
Masama.
I know the Japanese guy.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
And he's just like, "Yeah, you've said you'd give $100 billion, but I think you should give $200 billion." He's like in front of all the journalists. He's
put him on the spot.
Yeah, I know. He's like, "Okay." I sent you a link, by the way. If you want to check in your emails, maybe we want to play this because CBC, even CBC is commenting on the lack of budget. This is something.
Yes, like it sets a precedent, and then other governments too might end up doing the same thing. And again, I think they're just at the point where like, they don't care. They're like, whatever. I mean, pop this bad boy up.
It's about you ran on being like the economic stewards and having more economic cred than Pierre Poilievre. And the first action is telling Canadians, no, you're not going to take Parliament seriously enough to introduce a budget and give people a snapshot of where you're going and how much it's going to cost and what you think the challenges are in the future. Like, no, it's completely inappropriate. And the Conservatives are right. And the other opposition parties should probably gang on and complain that the government is railroading and acting in completely unacceptable ways. And this is not a standard that you want to set because the next government will do exactly the same thing.
But this is the point. They don't care. And you know what's going to happen? And let me know if you agree with this. They're going to run it in the media right now. They're going to pretend that they're trying to hold the government accountable. Everybody's going to forget over the next 2 weeks. And they're going to go ahead and do the next thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, look, it gets memory.
No, but it's like, but they get away with it every time.
They do.
That we're at the point where they're like, well, what's going to happen?
Mm-hmm.
You know, every scandal that happens, you freeze bank accounts, nothing happens. You do shit like this, nothing happens.
I mean, it's further than that.
Like, I don't think they care. And again, just the last point I'll say is like the cabinet, they are the same team members that are on the cabinet. And we were talking about this before, like the cabinet that's actually built, they have, even when you shuffle them around, they're going to have influence on policy and the direction of where Canada is going to go. The team has not changed.
That's the same thing.
And also, too, on top of this, Mark Carney, I'm really disappointed, to be honest, man. Like, I was actually bullish on Mark Carney. And, you know, he was Justin Trudeau's right-hand man with regards to the economy. And now, so he just replaced Justin Trudeau. I mean, it's the same government.
Same direction. And this has been my take on it. And this is why I was so scared of the Liberals winning. I think it's going to be more of the same, except at an accelerated pace with more competency. And when I say competency, not for Canada, but for the friends and the benefactors of whoever, at this point, whoever's pulling the strings behind. But we're not going to be the ones benefiting from that. Canada will continue to suffer. People will continue to pay the price. And I don't know what it's going to take anymore for people to wake up. Because the spell is strong. Like, I don't get it.
The spell that the party has over Canadians?
Yeah. It's a strong spell.
It is.
You know,
it is.
I mean, I don't even know what to say. Like, it's until people lose their homes, I think they're just going to be content with cutting back every line item of their budget, as long as it makes them feel like they're doing the virtuous thing for the country.
And the virtuous thing right now is we're saving the planet by going green.
Yeah, pretty
much. And people actually believe that. And then so when you hit them with facts, and you know what we're trying to do here in this podcast, you slap them with facts. Let's look at overall global oil consumption across the world. Let's get outside of the bubble of Canada, and they don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
So it's like, and you're right though. It's like sometimes too, I get frustrated with this. Do you find sometimes Canadians, not all Canadians, but some of them can be arrogant towards Americans?
Oh, that is
it's like, you know what I mean? Like, oh, you guys aren't sophisticated enough to actually understand what we're doing up here in Canada. We're Canadians. We're more sophisticated than you guys. Like, look at what you're doing down there. Look how green I am. And I can't stand it.
That is such a good point. Man, I had saved something from a guy who's becoming quite a friend of mine. He likes you as well. He calls you Travis instead of Curtis. It's the host of the Brave New. I don't want to quote it wrongly here. I keep saying Brave New World. It's not Brave New World. Sorry, buddy. It's the Brave New. Yeah, Brave New World. That's it. Sorry, I thought it was Brave New Normal. Anyways, the host of the Brave New Normal. World. Wow, I'm all over the place. And he's had me on his podcast a couple times, based out of Alberta. And this guy is an incredible writer. Okay, that's his thing. That's his niche. He writes like a fucking champion. And at one point, he penned this unbelievable text, and it's fairly lengthy, so I'm not going to read it all. But I just want to go to like one of those parts. So I'll let you continue while I find it in my saved documents.
I don't really have anything else to say, to be honest.
No?
As we're running out, I'll
all right. Well, then, because then I'll read a little bit of that, because I think, and look, maybe there's some clips in there that will make sense, maybe not. But God, was it a great text, and it just summarizes perfectly, and I mean so well, the average Canadian. Here, I have it right here. Okay, the Trump effect. Exposing Trudeau and Canadians' inaptitude. Okay, let me click on this. God, was it well written. All right, so there's a darkness that penetrates everything in Canada. It's always been here, but we can no longer hide it behind phony politeness and strained patriotism. Justin Trudeau is the embodiment of it, and that was before the election, may I add, but still applies today. A living, breathing chasm to nothing, a vessel of platitude that lives in a form of social elevator music. Fluff that sounds so nice that it's completely devoid of meaning upon closer examination. The Great White North has struggled to define itself in this post-Pierre Trudeau period. When challenged to demonstrate characteristics that would represent an identity, the most common response is simply that we are not American. So this is exactly what we're talking about. But what does that mean? We're certainly American in the sense that we belong to a continent bearing the name. Do we consider ourselves loyal subjects of the British Empire? Canada is a sovereign nation, however. We are also a member of the Commonwealth, and we govern under the exceptional, confusing British parliamentary system. We're surrounded by constant reminders that we are still technically ruled by the Crown, and subtle messages appearing everywhere, from our cash to our courts to the Western European brand of apathetic mediocrity produced by our state-funded media. Yet no self-respecting modern Canadian pays any attention to what happens within the British monarchy. King Charles could be shot out of a cannon over Palestine, and the news would be a cursory topic of conversation. And he continues to talk about why Canada is so apathetic. You know, he talks about our healthcare. He talks about our equalization payments. I honestly, like Jason James, okay, you can find him, Jason James BNN, that is his handle, insane text, but it explains and qualifies all of the reasons why Canada is the way it is, and how Trump right now in the US is really kind of like showing and shining a light on it, seeing our economy underperform compared to his, showing that he's managing to make deals around the world and stopping wars while we're here isolated and completely alone, just continually kind of like self-circle jerking each other, saying, but at least we're Canadian, we're nice. That's pretty much what we've devolved into, just saying we're nice, we're cool, we're not American, and it's fucking disgusting. There you go. I mean, I would love to read it all. I'm not going to do it. Sorry, it's just way too long. But God, it's a great text.
No, I don't have anything to add to that, to be honest.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know what to say either. It's you know, it sucks too, dude, because like I want, and let's end on this, okay? I would love to come on and talk about victories and successes, dude. I would love to come here and cheer with you and be like, yo, we've done this. This is how it's going to benefit us. Let's cheer, let's celebrate, have a drink, looking forward to the future. But I come back on here every week, and it's always like grim fucking news, and it's so annoying because like we got to live under this, and this affects us, our families, our friends, all of us. And it's not looking better. It's just looking more dire by the day. And it's kind of annoying.
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, I think where the world is, especially the West, where it's headed, and it's a very, like, look, it's not an easy position that they're in, the politicians, the central bankers. It's a difficult position because right now, obviously, there's so much debt, we need to do austerity. Austerity is not politically palpable at this point in time. If you want to run austerity, you are not going to win an election. Nope. And I kind of get the other side of the coin when you look at the people, because the people are going to go, well, look at all these hyper rich people that are making all this money, they have all these assets, and you're going to tell me you have to cut costs, and I'm the one barely scraping by day by day. I happen to be of the opinion that we have to let things break first so that we can drop the price of everything so that people can actually re-enter into the market. They can start buying houses again. They can start buying stocks, start buying productive assets. But the reality is, They're not going to do that. And what they're going to continue to do is just do more quantitative easing. They're going to pump up the price of assets. They're just going to keep doing this stuff, which is essentially a tax on the middle class. Because again, we've said this before, the people that own all the assets, the more money you print, the more they're fine. Because their assets just go up in value.
That's right.
And Ben Bernanke is like the godfather of quantitative easing, said himself straight up. He goes, the point of quantitative easing is to raise asset prices. This is not a secret.
Yep.
And so I just think like we're just getting, there needs to be a reset. And I'll take the words out of Justin. I don't have the same plan as what he had, a great reset, an opportunity for a great reset. But there does have to be a reset in some source. And stuff does, it's just, we need to have, there's a boom and then there's a bust. We have to have that bust. And we're at the end of like a long-term debt cycle, and all of the governments all together seem to just want to be kicking the can down the road, with the exception of Donald Trump, who is, and it remains to be seen, maybe what he's doing will not work, but I love the attitude that his team and him have, in the sense that, look, the path we're on right now is not sustainable. And I don't know if we think this is the right way to go about this to try and fix it. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But I do know this for sure. Staying on this path is not going to end well. So we have to try and do something.
Yep.
And I just feel like the rest of the world is not on the same page as Donald Trump and as the United States. Forget Donald Trump. You might not like him. He might be all bombastic, and he does say stupid shit. He talks out of his ass. Of course, I'm not going to disagree with that. But you got to give credit where credit's due. The team he has surrounded himself with, they are an excellent team. They are smart motherfuckers.
And they get shit done so quickly. That is the one thing.
They're very effective.
The
David
speed of
Sachs,
yeah.
like Scott Bessent is brilliant. Scott Bessent was like the bond king. David Sachs, he's like the new crypto czar. The list goes on and
but
on
even
and
his
on.
Secretary of State, like Rubio, right? The
Smart guy.
The speed of execution that they've exhibited.
Yes.
It's like we had 4 years of Biden.
Yes.
Where it seems like nothing really happened
Yes.
fast. And then you have 100 days of Trump. And again, whether you agree with what happened or not, shit happened in
Yes.
100 days.
And
it's
they're
only a start.
executing.
Yes. But it reminds me of a business person. You know what? The most important thing, and this is where a lot of the common person, especially in Canada, but anywhere in the world, makes a mistake. And I'll give a little bit of a business advice, all right? The one thing you can control that will set you apart from the rest of the competition is how fast you execute things. People want to talk about it. They want to meet about it. They want to analyze things. They're scared. And this is real in Quebec big time. Well, by the time they even start doing whatever they set out to do, you could be 7 steps ahead, having failed 6 times, learned so much, and you're on the 7th correct iteration by there. Just move fast. You want to beat people? Move faster. Well, the US government, or any government as a matter of fact, can do that. There's no reason why every decision needs to run through 17 committees and the approval of this and the approval of that. Actually, this is a good way to look at it. Look at the US Congress right now. Nothing's been happening in the US Congress. For the last 100 days, nothing has passed. No bill of any importance. Nothing has passed. It's fucking nothing's happened.
But everything's fine. The world's not on fire.
Yeah.
You know,
but in the meantime, the White House is getting shit done.
Yeah.
You know, they're limited in what they can do. They can't write laws, but it just goes to show. So put someone at the helm who is accountable and who keeps other people accountable. And this is why I love when you said about the budget in Canada, you said, just fucking get it done. That's the mentality we should have.
That's your job. Like, honestly, that's not an excuse. Like,
Yeah.
you just got, you know what you're taking on. I'm sorry. It's the same thing in business. Well, it's like when someone shows up late. Well, my you know, and they've been late for 15 times in a row. Oh, today my car broke down or the bus was late. Dude, you've been late 15 times. I don't care. I don't need to hear the story. Just get here on time. I don't give a shit. You're an adult. I don't care. Get here on time.
And that's the thing. It's like, put your big boy. Nobody's forced them to go into government. Nobody's forced them to have that position.
That's part of the job.
That's part of the job.
You get a good salary. It's your pension. Don't give me that shit where it's just like,
get it done.
just get it done.
Plus, you have a team of staffers anyways. You have fucking accountants
There's no
and
excuse.
shit.
Like there's absolutely no excuse.
Yep.
And it's just like, from like a more of a macro, I'll finish on this. It's like I just feel like they're rich, they're power. I'm talking about the political class here in Canada. They're rich, they're powerful, they have influence. Why would they want things to change? Because they're the benefactors of this.
It's true.
And the rest of society is, I don't want to say it's crumbling or it's breaking, but in Canada, I mean, just look at home ownership, look at the shrinkage of the middle class of Canada, look at the food banks lines, look at the cost of housing, look at the healthcare waits. I mean, stuff is not running the way it's supposed to be running. These guys get special priority. It's kind of just like you have the elites from back in the day and then the serfs. And I just feel like it's getting more and more like that. You know, whereas versus like in the 1950s after World War II, the West, the United States and Canada in particular, we just got to piggyback off the productivity of the United States. The West, that was the biggest growth of the middle class like ever. You know what I mean?
So people realize you could, back in the days, in the 50s and the 60s, support a family of 5 on one blue-collar manufacturing job, have 2 cars, 1 house, detached, right? Not a condo, not a townhouse, a detached single-family home, and sometimes even a freaking cottage off the salary of one low-skilled labor job.
Yeah.
Can you do that today?
No, you can't do it today. But this is my point, and this is where it's just like, I get it's not an easy situation. So it's like, but at the same time, if we're coming towards a dead end, or not even a dead end, we're about to go off the cliff. What are we supposed to do? I don't know what we're supposed to do. I don't have the answer to that. But at the same time, doing things as we have traditionally done here in Canada is not going to fix anything. And the gap between the rich and the poor is just going to continue to increase. This is the issue that I have with complacency in the government. And I know it's not the government's job to make sure that Canada is successful, but they should at least give us the tools and point us in the right direction.
No, all they need to do is get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah, I agree.
Get the fuck out of the way.
Just leave us alone.
All right. Let people are innovative. People are industrious.
Yes.
People are ambitious. People are creative. Just remove the fucking red tape, remove taxes that legit undermine. Look, to give you an idea of just how much taxes can kill you.
Remove the carbon tax.
Well, that's a huge one. Okay. But the 1031 is such a beautiful thing in the US, all right? And I know this is not a topic we want to talk about, but just to show you, right? 1031 in the US says that if you sell a real estate property, you don't have to pay capital gains on it as long as within 1 year you take the proceeds and reinvest it in a property, a similar property or the same category. It could be more expensive, but it has to be like a single family home has to stay a single family home, a multiplex has to stay a multiplex. And you can do this indefinitely. What this allows you to do is every time you make money on a sale of a property, you can roll 100% of the proceeds into a bigger one, increasing the leverage over time and reducing or not paying any taxes until the end. That allows you to compound over decades a small amount of money into a huge amount of wealth. In Canada, if it's not your primary residence, every time you sell a property, you got to pay capital gains on it. So you're losing 25 to 30% of your gain, which lowers your compounding ability. And at the end of, let's say, 20 or 30 years, this can amount to several $1 million short out of your pocket compared to an American brother of yours who would have done the same thing in the US. This is what I'm trying to say by remove the red tape, remove the money, remove the regulation, and just let fucking people do what they believe is right, as long as it's legal, okay, within means, it doesn't hurt anyone. And as long as, the government should be there to offer guardrails and to offer, most importantly, a judicial system that allows people to resolve disputes. For the rest, back the fuck out. We'll figure it out. I strongly believe Canadians.
That's how Canada was built.
There you go.
That's how the West was built. People built it ourselves. The government didn't build anything. We built it ourselves. The citizens of America, the citizens of Canada built the country.
Yep.
Let us continue to live in our country. Leave us alone. Get out of our way.
Vendu.
I think that's a good place to leave it.
That was amazing.
Check us out, guys. Once again, if you liked it, subscribe, like, send it to one of your friends, tell your girlfriend, tell your boyfriend, and check us out on Patreon.
Patreon,
baby.
Patreon.
Thanks.